Okay, I think we're live now.
Well, hello, and welcome to everybody joining us. Thank you for joining us. My name is Aaron Hall. I'm here with Ryland Warner and Luke Neerman, and we are here for the weekly update. So we are each going to give a quick update on something happening in the world of immigration, and then we'll dive in and try to get through your questions today. So I guess I'll start with mine. One of the things that I saw pop up within the last week or so, it was actually just a couple of days ago, are reports of people who are getting direct text messages, emails, phone calls, supposedly from USCIS. And USCIS is the immigration agency that adjudicates benefit applications here within the United States. The thing that's odd about it, or one of the things that's odd about it, is that people are supposedly receiving these messages even when they have an attorney on record. And there's no real way to know if it's really something that's coming from the government agency or not, because we've certainly heard of scams before where scammers pretend to be various government agencies, including immigration agencies. So the Immigration Lawyers Association, it's called AILA, is kind of looking into this and trying to gather more information about whether these are legitimate requests or not. But in the meantime, I think this applies across the board, not just to USCIS, but to Department of State communications, anything like that. If you have an attorney of record, and you get something directly from the agency, or purporting to be directly from the agency, you need to get that to your attorney, and the attorney can either respond or contact the agency to make sure that it's a legitimate request, and then respond accordingly. So don't try to respond directly to the agency if you have an attorney of record. And a related piece of advice is, if you're in a court case, you should never, ever try to communicate directly with the court or with government counsel. If you have government counsel's emails for some reason, everything needs to go through the attorneys on that. So if you have something you want to bring to the court's attention, it needs to go through the attorneys, who will decide if and how to present that to the court or to the government attorneys. So that's my little update. Ryland, you want to do yours?
Yeah, sure. So the thing that most interested me this week is this thing that's not actually implemented yet, but it's kind of rumored that it might be happening. It might be part of Biden's plan to get America reopened again, is that he might require vaccinations for all visitors to the United States. And I know at least here in the United States, vaccinations have become somewhat of a controversial thing. And I know that internationally, vaccinations have not rolled out as quickly as they have in the United States. And there are many places in the world that are still struggling to get enough vaccinations for their population. So I envision this to be kind of a complicated way to resolve the problem of closing down the borders. And I'm wondering, do you guys think that we might see a bunch of lawsuits around this? Or do you envision anything happening if it actually is implemented?
It's really interesting to think through how it will interact with other government policies, such as the bans on people entering from the Schengen area or other regions, whether a vaccination requirement would replace those bans, what would happen. The other question, I guess, is how the new variants play into this. I think there's some data coming out saying that the Delta variant and maybe the Delta Plus variant are quite transmissible even through vaccinated people. So I don't know. It will be interesting to watch, but I would be encouraged to see some policies other than just blanket bans of regions that don't really have much basis in science.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering about, the different international brands of vaccinations and how some of them have been more successful than others, and whether there will be a requirement for specific brands or not. I don't know. It'll be a weird thing. We'll see if it actually ever goes into place. A different story that I wanted to talk about was it was actually announced today. The Biden administration announced deferred enforcement departure for Hong Kong residents. So deferred enforcement departure is kind of like TPS, at least the way that it's being used here. It's coming from the president's office, and he's saying, hey, for citizens of Hong Kong that are in the United States, we're not going to make your deportation or removal a priority because we understand the situation that's happening in Hong Kong, and we don't want to send you back there. For now, I think I'm not sure if it has a definitive period. I know that previously the Trump administration did this for Venezuela, and now Venezuela has temporary protected status. So it might be we're on our way towards TPS for Hong Kong. That's conjecture on my part, just based off of how it went for Venezuela. But I just wanted to provide that update for Hong Kong people in the United States that might be worried about removal or deportation. And finally, speaking of temporary protected status, because I talked about it last week and I was maybe giving some dates, I wanted to provide another update because there's been an update since last week. And they've extended the initial registration period for 3 of the countries, for Venezuela, for Syria, and for Burma. So now the initial registration period for those 3 countries, for Venezuela, it goes until September 9th of 2022. I think it was originally September of this year, so they've extended it for another year. For Syria, it goes until, oh shoot, it's cutting off the actual month, but that goes into 2022 as well. And then for Burma, that goes until November 25th of 2022. And although you do have this this new window of time that you might not have had before, we still encourage you to try to get your TPS applications in earlier rather than later. Don't put it off. So yeah, those are my updates. Luke, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. So I don't have a huge update. I was thinking about, recently in the news, obviously there's been a lot of stuff on DACA and the end of the DACA program. In mid-July, there was a judge, federal court district judge that ruled, he's out of Texas, ruled that the DACA program was unlawful. And the implications of that was basically cutting off the ability for new applicants to apply for DACA. But it really, there's lots of questions about what's coming next for DACA. And, kind of in that vein, something that you may have been hearing about in the news is something called the budget reconciliation process. This legislative process basically to get some policy priorities of the Biden administration through kind of an alternate route to getting the 60 votes that are normally needed in the Senate to pass legislation. And so, right now we've been hearing a lot about the infrastructure bill that is in Congress, but I think kind of looking ahead, we're going to be hearing a lot more about this budget reconciliation process. What this is basically a way for Congress to get through some policy priorities. The key to this budget reconciliation process is that all the changes basically need to be related to spending or revenue in some fashion. And so what that means, like for immigration specifically, there's been a lot of talk about some changes to put in this budget reconciliation process that might provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, options for people who are currently on TPS, farm workers, and then maybe other essential workers. It's not defined what essential workers are, but we may see in a couple of weeks some more talk about these specific immigration reform policy priorities of the Biden administration being attempted to be passed through this budget reconciliation process. Just wanted to flag that for everybody.
So, Luke, what's the timeline look like? I get confused with all they're also doing the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and so that's, I think, separate. But do you know what we're looking at?
Yeah, I actually don't know exact timeline. I think it's something that they address in the fall. I'm not sure what the dates are when they need to have when they do the big budget spending bill for the government. I know it's sometime in the fall. I don't know. I want to say maybe the end of September, maybe end of October. I think we would see something pass.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like we have just a couple of questions today. Rylan, should we get into those?
Yeah, sure. So we have this first one from Kailash. Sorry, that's probably not how you pronounce that. Hi, Aaron. Any update on Go? They are a plaintiff from Nepal.
Hello there in Nepal. Do we have an update on Go? Well, nothing's probably too interesting or substantive, but I'll give the latest and then the outlook going forward. So the latest filings in the case were due last Friday. And that was the judge's order that the government submit a filing on standing. They did that in each of the cases that are related to DV 2021. So it wasn't just our case; it was all cases. And then a joint appendix. And the joint appendix is just the parties compiling or getting together. And when I say the parties, it's us and government counsel getting together and specifically providing the portions of the administrative record which were cited, basically so that the judge doesn't have to pour through thousands of pages of records. He can just look at the ones that were cited in briefs or an argument. So that was all submitted on the 30th. Those were the last submissions that were outstanding. And so the case is ripe for a decision now. The next question that I see is, when will the order come? When will the judge make a decision? There's no way to know. What we do know is that he's very familiar with the issues because he's dealt with these issues since DV 2020 cases in Gomez and those consolidated cases. He's already had the hearing. He has all the documents, and he's very well aware of the September 30th deadline. And so we would hope that could result in a relatively quick decision. That said, if I was to say, it's going to be this week or next week, I would be, just guessing. I don't know that. If it's going to go, if the judge knows that he's going to reserve visas, as we've asked, then he might feel a little bit less pressure to do the order quickly. Because he knows that the harm that he's seeking to avoid is going to be avoided by reserving visas. So maybe he would take his time. I don't know. I'm sure that he's doing a thorough job, and we'll just have to wait. But it could be any time. Yeah.
From Ronald, is it easy to show harm to every 24,000 plaintiffs for preliminary injunction? Just a curiosity.
Well, anytime that you're having to show irreparable harm, which is what you need to do in a preliminary injunction, you have to show that something bad is going to happen that is not going to be able to be put back together from a court order way down the line. And that's the reason why a party would request a preliminary injunction to basically make sure that the relief sought in the case is going to be possible down the line when they make a decision on the full merits of the case. How easy it is to show harm for every plaintiff, I don't know. It depends on how the case is structured, how the judge orders the briefing on it. In some contexts, the judge can say, I just want to see irreparable harm for at least one plaintiff and be convinced that it's irreparable harm in at least that one plaintiff's case. And our case is not the context of a preliminary injunction and go. It's the motion for summary judgment. But that's what the judge wanted for standing in our case, basically saying, I want to see one plaintiff that's representative that can show that he has standing in a case. And so we provided a number of plaintiffs on the standing filing and think that each of them clearly has standing. So we will see.
Yeah, and that's a big reason why we ask for those affidavits, and then we look through all of them and we try to find the ones with the most compelling harms to use those. So it's all your work put to use. Osama is asking, what are your expectations? Okay, we already answered this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Ronald, he's asking again what your opinion is of the government's response in Go.
Sure. In my opinion, the government did what it could, but it has a major problem with its response. So again, the judge only wanted to see a plaintiff with standing. And I'll give one, and the government's job was to show that no plaintiff had standing. So I'll give an example from our briefing. We have a plaintiff who is applying at the consulate in Montreal for the diversity visa lottery, and we highlighted him in our case. We highlighted the fact that he was documentarily qualified and had a current visa number before the first day, so on October 1st, 2020, the first day of the fiscal year. We also documented that the consulate in Montreal had done, I can't remember how many off the top of my head, but I want to say like 1,200 or 1,500 immigrant visas during the fiscal year, and 0 diversity visas. And so our point was, but for the blocking of diversity visas for the first 6 months of the year under the proclamation, and then the deprioritization, he very clearly, with current number and documentarily qualified so early, would have gotten an immigrant visa interview and had his case adjudicated. And they just basically say, well, no, we don't know that. And I don't think their case on that is very compelling. So in sum, I think they did what they could, but I think we very clearly have standing.
Okay. We have a couple questions about the effect of the Goodluck case and their big amount of plaintiffs and what that might do to Go.
It's impossible to say. So we don't know a number of things. We don't know whether Judge Mehta is going to issue one decision and list all the cases and have it be like a global decision. It's possible he could do that. He hasn't said that he's going to do that. He hasn't formally issued anything saying the cases are consolidated. And so we don't know. As of now, our case is its own case. And we think that our claims and our plaintiffs have good claims. And that if he looks at our case on its merits, that he should grant the relief that we're asking for. That said, like I've explained before, we other plaintiffs in other cases likely also have very valid legal claims because they're probably very similar or the same as our plaintiffs. So what does that mean as far as the numbers of plaintiffs? We don't know. But what our point was to the court is it's not an issue of asking our plaintiffs to displace other DV 2021 selectees. The issue is whether we're going to let all the rest of the 55,000 visas go to waste. Because if the court does nothing, they're going to go to waste. If the court does something, then they're going to be used, and they should be used for our plaintiffs who have brought this claim and showed that they've been adversely impacted by this. So I believe that there's room, and I don't see the Goodluck case, for example, or any other case causing us problems. But we don't know how the judge is going to structure his decision or his order.
And this, I just wanted to get Ronald's specific question of adjudication before October. I mean, we would love for that to happen, but if not, we're asking for the visas to be reserved so that they can be adjudicated when they get to them, and the sooner the better. Yeah. Michael Fallesen is asking, he is a Milligan R2, round 2, and where we stand with the court since the case and Ramirez regarding Manila. 500 days since USCIS approval.
I'll take that one. So we have briefed the issues, and we're waiting, in Milligan specifically, we're waiting for an issue from Judge Boasberg. So we finished briefing like the end of June, and so it's been a couple weeks, so we're hoping that we'll get a decision from Judge Boasberg any day now. I mean, it's impossible to say. Similarly with Ramirez, we've briefed the motion to dismiss, and are waiting on a decision on that as well. I would just say Manila continues, as I'm sure you're aware, Manila just continues to be a problem with processing a lot of these cases. So you're a round 2 plaintiff, you are not alone. I think all of our round 2 plaintiffs processing out of Manila, except for maybe one or two plaintiffs, are still waiting for their interview. So continues to be a problem. Unfortunately, hopefully we'll get a good decision on this from the judges, but we're still working on this, still fighting for you guys. We're still bringing it up with government counsel to address this issue and hopefully move things along.
And the last question from Vulcan, do we like baklava? And how many people are in our office? And does anyone have a pistachio allergy? I, for one, love baklava. I can handle this question, guys.
No. I'm going to get my words in too, but go for it.
I don't have a pistachio allergy, and that's all that really matters, I think. I don't know how many people are in the office.
Luke, are you
I do like baklava.
Yeah.
I do like baklava. Numbers, we got what, like 200 people in the office? Just kidding.
I think we're depending on the day, we're probably about 15 people in the office, but everybody likes baklava. How couldn't you like baklava? It's so good. And no pistachio allergies as far as I'm aware. If somebody has one, that's more for us.
Mm-hmm. We'll make them aware that there are pistachios, just in case. I'd love to end on that fun question, but Ronald has to follow up. So why did the judge specify priorities for named plaintiffs in reserved visas from Gomez and Co. cases? I think that is the main reason that most of us Go plaintiffs not believe in reserving visas. Please enlighten Aaron.
Why didn't he specify priorities for named plaintiffs in reserved visas in Gomez and Company cases? I'm sorry, and Luke or Rylan, you can jump in if you get it, but I'm not sure that I'm quite getting the question. I think the question gets at, okay, if he reserves the visas, how do we know that we, Go plaintiffs, will benefit from that? And the short answer is, I don't know the answer to that. The point that I would make is that typically in these cases where there's a order that affects people outside the litigation, it's very common for an order to specify named plaintiffs first, and that would benefit our clients. Now, are we sure that that's going to work specifically for people with the highest case numbers? No, we're not, and we never have been sure that would be how it would work. From the beginning when we were doing the FAQ on this. However, we think it's that this litigation and the attempt to reserve all visas gives all of our plaintiffs the best possible opportunity to have their cases adjudicated. So Ronald, that's the best I can do to answer that one.
Okay. All right. That was the last question. Anything else we want to talk about before signing off?
No. Thanks for joining, everybody. See you next week.
Excited for baklava.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.